When I'm out in the general public and it happens to come up that I'm a cannabis coach, there's usually that initial look of like either shock or confusion or some combination of the two. We need to really hold on to that as long as we can in the cannabis community, because some of the people who laid the foundation, who did the original work, are not here with us anymore. The work they started isn't done. Like, it's not even close to done. One of the best things about going through the TCI program is just having this amazing community to connect with. There's an algorithm and it will just get you if you say the C word.
Yeah, that C word. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Andrea Maharg. I am the program director at the Cannabis Institute, and I have been teaching doctors and the general public about the health benefits of medicinal cannabis for 8 years now. And I am here with one of our wonderful Cannabis Institute grads, Elizabeth Farnsworth. She graduated back in 2022, and we're here to find out what she's out there doing in the world to preach the word that cannabis is healthy. So welcome, Elizabeth. I'm so glad to talk to you. Tell us what you've been up to.
Thank you, Andrea. Thanks for having me on your channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, boy, in many ways, I still feel like I'm kind of at the beginning of this journey of what's possible in this industry and with helping people with this plant. I just recently started a Substack and just really dived into the Substack community. Mine is Ask a Cannabis Coach.
Awesome. And tell me about Substack. We were talking about this a little bit offline, and you chose Substack for a specific reason. Can you dive into like why you chose it and what you're doing over there?
Yes, absolutely. Substack is long form, so it's mostly people who are writers, journalists, creative writers of all kinds, poets, etc. And I like the platform just for ease of use. Generally, it's really easy to get set up. And then also because they have a fairly robust policy with protecting speech. And just in general, what I've been pleased to see is so far, I have not heard or seen any cannabis writers getting removed from the site because they were talking openly, using correct terminology, the whole 9 yards, about this plant, which is very encouraging. That's certainly one of the barriers that we face, as you well know. Basically, anywhere else on the internet, on social media, there's banning, shadow banning. Even when you are presenting really factual information, real scientific stuff, that doesn't seem to matter. There's an algorithm and it will just get you if you say the C word. Yeah.
Yeah, that C word. And that's your vibe, actually. Like, you're super nerd about this plant, right? You love diving into the nitty gritty. And it is so frustrating for all of us as cannabis coaches and educators who treat this plant like a medicine and not like a recreational drug for a Friday night, although that's totally fine too. Like, enjoy your best life. But we are talking about how does cannabis interact with our internal systems and what sort of diseases or conditions might it help. And you have to be able to dive deep and look at studies when you're doing that. And you said that there's quite a few reputable cannabis writers over there as well. So you have a community of people who think like you, and to not have the fear of like being kicked off, that must be wonderful.
Absolutely. There are great cannabis writers over there. Absolutely. And some of the old guard too, something I've really been enjoying reading. On Substack right now, there's a great Substack called Medical Marijuana Memory Blog. It's written by Alice O'Leary Randall. You might have that name ring a bell if you know your cannabis history, because her husband, Robert Randall, was the very first patient that the US government ever allowed medical access to, post-prohibition. And so right now, it's been 50 years since her husband first started going through all of that process back in
Wow.
1976. She went through it with him, and he has since passed. But she is just very dedicatedly bringing together all of her memories, all of the documentation. It's great because you see like old newspaper clippings.
Yeah.
She's got like the actual in black and white there. I really just think still, unfortunately, if you want to know where we're at in this moment with cannabis as an industry, especially in the United States, you got to know your cannabis history. You gotta dig in, dive in, and learn about the people who even made the present moment possible. I mean, if it wasn't for activists, brave people, and she makes this really clear. She does such a good job. Robert Randall was an ordinary guy. He just had glaucoma, and then in the 1970s, there weren't really good drugs to help control that yet. And unfortunately for him, like every other permutation of what was available didn't help him. Anyway, it's fascinating. It's still really relevant, really pertinent. So it's powerful to go back and to read those stories and to hear from the people who really lived that. We need to really, I think, hold on to that as long as we can in the cannabis community, because some of the people who laid the foundation, who did the original work, are not here with us anymore. And the crowd that is still left, unfortunately, is dwindling. I mean, that's just kind of the way of it. So getting in touch with those people, hearing those stories again, refreshing our collective memory a little bit, I think really helps us to keep energized for the fight, right?
Yeah.
'Cause the work they started isn't done. Like it's not even close to done. But then also to be able to see there are ways in which what happened in the past feels very similar to some of the ways that we're going again. And if you're not aware of that history, it's hard to see the patterns and it's hard to take action effectively to get in front of that. So that's been one of the great things about getting on Substack and meeting those people. Yeah.
I also think it's so important. I am consistently grateful for everybody who came before us, like you said, so that you and I can be sitting on this YouTube video and talking about this plant. This is the reason why we do the work that we do at the Cannabis Institute, is so that we continue this momentum of people understanding that cannabis can be a medicine. What kind of stuff are you writing about on Substack, super nerd?
Well, my Substack is relatively new, but I started it out just explaining to the public what it is that I do, what are cannabis coaches. Usually when I'm out in the general public just talking to people and it happens to come up that I'm a cannabis coach, there's usually that initial look of like either shock or confusion or some combination of the two. What do people really need
Yeah.
someone to tell them how to smoke a joint? Is that a thing? Are we that like incapable of figuring things out as a society? No, that's not where we're going with this. So I just started off with a general sort of introduction article about who cannabis coaches are, what sort of people tend to be our clients, how we generally try to help. And then I just this week published part of a two-part series on the basics of trying to figure this stuff out that you need to be
Perfect.
tracking. Please, people, please, if you take anything away from this video, track your consumption, please. It will be so much better. And then the most recent one was on what does start low, go slow even really mean?
Mm.
Because it seems simple, right? It's like everybody's heard this 8 zillion times. And yet, when you sit down and think about it, most people feel like they actually practically don't really know what that means. So, we're starting with the basics. And then I hope we're going to get going with some more interesting things. I would love to do some collaborative articles with other cannabis writers, with people in the cannabis space, industry professionals, scientists, etc. So we'll see where it goes, but I'm excited to at least be able to write openly and honestly about this plant and its potentials.
I'm so grateful that you're doing that type of work, especially with your brain. You people watching don't know this, but Elizabeth pops into our community often and shares factoids or helps resolve misunderstandings amongst current students as far as the actual science behind what's happening. And we have people who come through the program and do lots of different things. Not everybody is a super nerd like you and me, and that's totally fine. But I am so grateful that you're putting your energy, your mind, etc., towards this. When you came through the program, was writing something always that you had in the back of your mind? Was this what you were planning on doing from the beginning, or how did this all play out for you?
Writing has been something that has always come to me. Although it's funny, when I first started the Cannabis Institute program to become a certified cannabis health coach, our cohort mentor, one of our cohort mentors, Michelle, she saw some of what I was posting for action steps and she challenged me. She said, "You need to write a blog." And I said, "Okay." But it turns out setting up a blog on the internet where you talk about cannabis is more involved and complicated than you might think. So I kind of just let that fall by the wayside for a while, finished my training and everything, and then picked it back up again, finally, when the time was right. So this is like the prophecy has been fulfilled. Michelle, I did it.
Some people come through the program and they're like off to the races and they're doing the thing that they knew they were going to do from the beginning. But that is not the case for so many people, especially as you come through and see what other people are doing out there and you become attracted to it. I'm so grateful that you and PJ are on Substack because we have a student in the program right now who's a really excellent writer, but she is in her 70s and she does not want to figure out all the tech of a blog. And so she is also, I believe, going to move to Substack or maybe just do an email newsletter and to let people know like that's available too. People crave information in a variety of different ways. And the way that you're called to like put information out there, like some people are going to want that. I'm so happy that you found your niche and you're doing what clearly lights you up.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a good feeling, to finally start to figure some of that stuff out. And certainly, I think part of the thing too is just you wind up running up to something that looks good and then kind of there's something there that's going to stop you and you got to try and figure out, do we go around, do we go under, do we go over? Always in life in a variety of ways, but especially if you're going to work in the cannabis space, you got to be determined and sometimes you got to take a step back.
Yeah.
And be willing to say, you know, maybe now is not the moment, but I'm going to be ready,
Yeah. Like you said, if you're going to be in this space, you must be tenacious. You must be willing to roll with the punches. And one of the great things about us in our institute is that we do have a community of people who have tried all of the things and found something that works and then they share it. So I'm so grateful that you are part of our community so that, we can figure this out together.
Absolutely. Pay it forward,
Mhm.
That was certainly one of the best things about going through the TCI program, was just having this amazing community to connect with, both of people who are already working, living in the cannabis space, and of people who are just enthusiasts, at least at the beginning, and just really interested in learning more and seeing where they can go with it. So yeah, it's always lovely to be able to find your people, especially when you're dealing with something that's more niche, a little more difficult, a little more challenging.
Thank you so much for spending some time with me and talking to me about what you're doing out in the world. If you also would like to be an Elizabeth who's writing a Substack or doing something else amazing with your creative brain, we would love to have you join our 3 steps to launching a successful cannabis wellness business webinar. It's about an hour long. It's very interactive. We give you a full handout to help you plot out what speaks to you, what calls you in the cannabis space, and how you want to spend your time and energy. And we map out for you the things that you to do in order to be a cannabis coach or educator in the space. So the links to that are down below. Please take that free class. We would love to see you in there. You can find Elizabeth's Substack down below in the links. And by the time this video is published, part 2 of her current series will be out there as well. And she will share with you in there how you can find if you also want to ask a cannabis coach. So yeah, I really appreciate you spending time with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrea.